9.
9. Chris, the design challenge we will be taking upon ourselves today is create 3 space anomalies that beg to be investigated.
Oh no, these are going to be scary.
I hope so.
Hello and welcome to Roll for Topic, a roundtable discussion about topics related to running role-playing games. I'm Chris Salzman.
And I'm Andy Rao.
And Andy, so we have gotten some feedback, I guess in the past and also more recently, that I'm a scaredy cat. So the prospect of this design challenge that we just rolled has me nervous already about what's going to happen.
I look forward to me trying to push us in the direction of like extreme body horror and you trying to pull us in the direction of like unicorns and rainbows. So
yeah,
it just says space anomalies that beg to be investigated. They don't have to be horror, even though every time this has appeared in a piece of media, it has been to introduce a horror story.
Yeah, well, we'll put our own spin on it. And I think we'll stick with, like maybe there's a rainbow in space. How does that
that's
work?
Right. Okay, well, so before we begin our challenge, Chris, let's lay out at least one of these needs to not be in the horror genre.
Okay.
Maybe more of them can be too, but like let's just add that to the challenge.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, yeah, and so we're going to get into the design challenge, but I actually had a couple things that I wanted to talk about on air. One is a little bit self-serving. Because both you and I are playing Elden Ring right now.
Indeed we are.
I think we are both loving it quite a bit. And for those of you who do not play video games, Elden Ring is yet another game in the, I'm just going to say in the Dark Souls universe, although it's, slightly different. And so if you have any nerds in your life, they're probably talking about it incessantly. So I apologize. You're going to hear a little bit more about it these days.
It's very hard not to just start talking about Elden Ring right now. I'm holding myself back almost physically here.
So the thing that I will say about it, and maybe we can keep it a little bit broad and maybe tied to tabletop games a bit, is that it is like an extremely evocative setting. It is everything you may or may not like about fantasy turned up to like 15 on the scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great. Like you have no idea what's going on. There's a bunch of new vocabulary all the time that makes no sense. And they could just say like, they could say like, it's a tree, but no, it's got to be like the cool tree of whoever. Yeah. So I'm liking it quite a bit. I'm a couple hours into it. I think I just started last night, 2 nights ago or so. It's consumed every waking moment that I have where I can devote to playing video games. But yeah, what about you, Andy? Like, what's your hot take on Elden Ring?
I'm many hours into it and loving it. And just to pull it back into a tabletop RPG thing, one of my earliest impressions of it was that it felt like a video game that really embodies what, quote, old school D&D wants to be. It's a big map that you don't know anything about. You don't have any kind of pre-existing knowledge of it. You don't know its history. You don't know what you can expect to find there. And in the same way, I sort of imagine those old school Gygaxian hex crawl adventures happening. In this game, I mean, you look at the map, you say, that looks like a cool place to check out, and you go over there, and there's always something interesting to do there. There's always some kind of an encounter there. It might be a ruin or the scene of like a little small dungeon. It might be a place of refuge where there's an NPC you can talk to and have an exchange with. But it's just packed with encounters of various sorts. And it made me think, I know there is a Dark Souls RPG coming out, and it's a must buy, no matter what the critics say for it, that will be going into my collection.
Yes.
But I think I remarked to you, Chris, Elden Ring feels like the most tabletop gameable version of kind of the From Software universe that we've seen so far. And a lot of it has to do with just that open world full of stuff for you to go discover at your own pace. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm just a few hours into it, but I would agree with that. It's, if you've played like another game that maybe more people might have had an interaction with is like Zelda Breath of the Wild. Like it has a similar feel to that, or even some of the other Zelda games too, where it's just like, like you kind of make up your own goals in it a bit. Like you're like, yes, I want to go over there. Let's figure out how I can get to that spot. Right. And like, that you have some movements and actions and stuff that you can do, but you're not quite sure how it's going to play out. But like the game rewards you by actually letting you get there. So if you've been frustrated with games being like, oh, you can't do that, right? Like, because there's just an invisible barrier. somewhere there. Like, I mean, I think, yeah, this, like, Elden Ring and some other games like this are really, like, letting you do that, and it's super exciting. So I don't have too many thoughts about Elden Ring beyond that, like, those initial exploratory hours, but yeah, it's good. I'm sure if you listen to this podcast, you will hear us talk more and more about it as we as we get further into the game.
Yeah, and obviously it's not, we're not a video game podcast, so so rest assured, dear listener, we'll move on in a moment. But the one thing that jumped out at me, tabletop gaming wise, from Elden Ring, in addition to what we've already discussed, is its confidence in letting you bump into stuff that you're really not equipped to handle yet, and it doesn't artificially wall you out of places you really shouldn't be. I mean, that's not 100% true. There are places you can't get to quite yet at the beginning of the game. But in general, the game is confident that you'll go into these hard places, get your butt kicked, and decide to come back later. But the game does absolutely allow you to figure out those places and like cheese your way through those places at low level if you could figure it out. And this is kind of sits on my sort of, we all have that GMing bucket list, stuff we want to do one day. And that, I don't know, that kind of old school hex crawling campaign where you don't give too much worry about what the PCs are able to handle, and you just sort of trust that they will react to a new situation in the way that seems best to them, whether it's like, whoa, we need to retreat, we're not ready for this, or hey, I think we can do this if we take advantage of this power and this strategy and this character ability, and somehow make our way through something that should be too challenging for us.
That's good. Yeah. Okay. So, Andy, before we get into our topic, so I had one other thing that I wanted to talk about. So, I have gotten the privilege, I would say, of getting to play in person games. Between the last time we recorded and now, I played in person twice.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's been amazing, and it's kind of reminded me about like why I like the hobby, I guess. Yeah, because it's just like there's something like just so magical about sitting around a table with your friends to like tell a story. Yeah, so I just wanted to like, call that out, right? Because it's been a long time since I played in person, just because of pandemic stuff and our family situation and all that. Yeah, so having like these two experiences sort of like somewhat back to back has been great. So one was a Blades in the Dark game, which is ongoing, which is like been super great. Another one was John Corey has kicked off his One Ring campaign. Wonderful. So he's doing what he calls the Bumbling Hobbits campaign. So I'm playing as a Drogo. Yeah, Drogo in that campaign. And we have like the big scary things that have happened in that are crossing a river that has too much water in it. And we had to chase off an owl. So it's like so the stakes are quite low. This is in contrast to the Blaze of the Dark game, which has gotten much darker than that. But, yeah.
Well, I can see it's your goal to explore the opposite extremes of kind of fictional fantasy settings.
Yes. Yeah, but it's really great. I mean, we were talking a little bit on the Discord, I think, about this, and I think it's been a while since like I've gone on a proper like Chris talks about why he loves gaming rant. But there is like I mentioned, it's magical to sit around the table, but like the reason that I play these games is to be with the people that I'm playing with them. Yeah. Like, right? It's not to interact with the mechanics. It's not to min-max my character or anything like that. It's to like have these fun shared experiences, right? Like, cause I don't know, like at the end of the day, like, what do you really have, right? You have sort of your memories, you have your friends and your family and stuff. Yeah. So I think it's really important to find these things that bring you together, right? So like whether it's gaming or something else, I think grab onto that and hold on to it. But yeah, for me, it's been gaming lately, and that's been like, super just lovely. Like when we were playing the One Ring game, at one point there was a very silly joke made that just like had us all laughing for way longer than I think any of us had laughed in a while, which was just, it was super great. So yeah, that is my pitch for like get together with your friends if you can and play some games because it's good for the soul.
Is there anything in particular that like you will never take for granted again about in-person gaming?
I think for me, the thing that I really love is like, so I'm an introvert. So if you give me too much like one-on-one time with a person, it can get a little bit much to say the least, right? So like for me, like the most valuable parts about gaming are sort of the bookend conversations, like hey, you're getting there, you're catching up with people, right? And then like before you're leaving, you're saying goodbye, those sorts of things, or like the little jokes that you have within the game, or, you know, like getting up to get a snack, those sorts of things. Just being able to like bump into each other a bit more.
Yeah.
I think for me, like that's the thing that I've missed the most about the pandemic, is those small like moments that surround stuff that you just don't get with Zoom.
Yeah.
You don't get with Roll20. So.
Yeah, my place of employment has been totally remote for the last 2 years since the pandemic began, and you know, we periodically have those discussions about like what do we miss, you know, like what needs aren't being met. And it's those bump into each other, passing each other on the way out of the office or on the way to go grab coffee or something like that. It's the business stuff you can figure out. But some of what we've lost is that like, hey, what are you reading these days type of chats while you're both passing each other in the hall. So that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it, Chris. And cool. I'm glad you're gaming again. And that sounds like a really fun combination of games to be playing.
It is.
One where you delve into the depths of, I assume, human depravity. And the other where you do whatever the opposite of that is. So.
Yeah. It has been, the accusation has flown in our Blades in the Dark game that we're being a little bit too nice, but I would like to say that we're being savvy, which is the word that we chose for ourselves is savvy. So, okay. All right. Let's transition into our topic at hand. So Andy, to start this thing, I need you to tell me, what is the thing in space that you would see that would make you like, well, we got to go see that?
The obvious answer to that question is assuming a real-world, modern-day setting. The most clear answer to that setting is evidence of intelligent life. Mm-hmm. So if something, you know, we are so... How many decades and centuries have we gone with seeing nothing coming into us from the void except natural processes? You know, what if we saw something? But that's kind of an obvious one. So with this topic, I kind of have in mind some sort of sci-fi-ish setting. Let's assume that they already know there is or there could be intelligent life out there, maybe. Mm-hmm. So here's something to get us started. What about a well-known and well-documented and well-understood natural phenomena behaving in a truly bizarre way? Mm. Here is an example from literature. I'm going to botch the name of this author who I love, but I've never known how to pronounce his name. Werner Vinge or Vinge.
I'm going to be no help there, but I know what you're talking about.
Right. Well, listeners, I hope you are silently seething at my mispronunciation. At any rate, he's written a lot of stuff about sort of post-singularity sci-fi fiction. Anyway, one of his books has as its setting what draws people to a distant solar system is that its suns are like switching on and off at regular intervals that defy anything that, you know, normal science would explain. So they're just going on and off like light switches. And how do you not go check out what's going on there? So that's my first answer. Something like that, which we need to decide what it is. But so what's something that could be just behaving really abnormally?
Yeah. So the question sort of, like, you know, I've read my fair share of like hard sci-fi that like we'll take the idea of like, well, what if your sun is turning on and off and just really spin out from there? Like what could possibly happen? So I think I like that. And I think like maybe let's just for what we're doing, stay a bit grounded in that. So it's not like all of a sudden there's magic in space, right? Like, so it's, something along those lines. Yeah. The thing that occurs to me with, you know, the sun, you know, like, or your star kind of blinking on and off is that like the temperatures on the planets nearby are going to change quite drastically, right? Like if it's not outputting heat, there might also be some consequences, like some knock-on effects, like maybe orbits change as well of the planets that are surrounding it. Yeah.
I really like that one. I like the orbits thing. Can we talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah. So the thought that I had there was, I mean, like, right, so I'm not a physicist or, you know, astronomer at all. So when I think about like the Earth going around the sun, it's a very simple mental model of like kind of the Earth just going around it in a flat plane. But, you know, I'm wondering if like, you know, even if you just sort of tilted that a couple degrees, right? Like what that would do to like everything on that planet, right? Like if all of a sudden, your light sources are acting differently, you know, or maybe the whole planet like comes to a stop and starts going the other way. You could do a lot with those, orbits.
So the orbit of a planet, maybe a major populated planet or something, is starting to change in a way that's not explicable by... It will shock you listeners to hear this, but I also am not an astrophysicist. So,
yeah.
Okay, so
this is where we should have Tim Saucer on speed dial, bring him in, because I think he's probably screaming right now.
What kind of appeals to me about this is, it's always interesting to me how, the conditions of a planet like Earth are kind of set up uniquely to support the kind of, life that we have here. And it's fun to, I think even, relatively small changes in the way Earth behaves or interacts with its environment would have, the potential to have dramatic consequences. Warming or cooling or gravity starts changing would have profound consequences for like a really developed society that has developed for thousands of years, assuming that certain natural laws are going to work the way they do forever. So, depending on what you do with this, maybe the orbit changes by a few degrees, or maybe something more dramatic happens. I think it would be fun as a GM to like just do a little Googling. What would happen if, if the Earth just angled slightly differently than it is, or it got a little bit farther from the sun or whatever.
Just in the interest of like making it like pretty obvious, let's be a little bit extreme. Like let's say the space anomaly is like whatever planets are orbiting that sun, like start spinning the opposite direction and like fly, like start flying out of control, right? Like you just like, take it to 10. I mean, then I think you have a bunch of hooks there. It's like, well, do you just try to save the sentient folk that are on these planets? Do you try to like undo what is happening? Like what caused this, I guess? Is it some sort of like oil baron was trying to drill for oil on the sun?
Yep. Okay, so are we going to leave it up to the GM to decide, like, what caused it? Is this as specific as we want to get with this?
Yeah, let's leave it up to the GM. Let's come up with a couple hooks, I think, per idea, just so we can explore that a bit.
Sounds good.
But yeah, I think I like that. That's a good space anomaly.
All right, so shall we move on to number 2 then?
Yeah, then for sure.
Let me throw out kind of a type for us, and then so that one we just discussed is not necessarily horror. It's kind of it kind of lends itself to a disaster movie type of experience.
Yeah.
Get in there and save people, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. So my favorite cinematic type of space anomaly that gets the crews of like space freighters in trouble every single time is something that promises to help them out. I have 2 examples I want to throw out. One is in, the movie Sunshine, Danny Boyle's Sunshine. Super underrated, wonderful sci-fi movie, in my opinion. I will fight you on this. And
okay.
Yeah, so they're on, a critical space mission. Everything's going fine. They haven't had to deviate in any way. They're on a mission that they will have one shot to get it right. And on the way to their destination, where they'll have exactly one shot to get it right, they detect a still functional previous expedition that might basically give them 2 shots. Like if they go and get the thing off of that ship, which they don't know why it failed, it still has the thing they need. They just go over and they take basically a second round of ammunition off of that ship. They would have 2 shots, which would give them a wonderful new margin of error. In so many horror type movies, you just are yelling at the screen, like, why would you do such a stupid thing? But that is a hard enough choice. Like, you would have to really think, yes, we would be adding some element of risk into our mission to go deviate here. But the potential rewards are really vast. So maybe in our scenario, we imagine the PCs really should not be diverting their attention. Let's come up with something that would make that a truly difficult choice. The other one, which I won't go into detail, is I do kind of like the conundrum that Alien Covenant gives its space freighter. It's another pretty tough, that is actually tempting to go for it type of So anyway, all right, what do you think about that?
You heard it here first. Andy thinks that Alien Covenant is the best one.
We're very close to unleashing to opening the floodgates here. So listeners, I'm fighting hard to stop. Keep talking, Chris, or else we're gonna get We're going to get some rants about the Alien franchise, please.
Yeah. When you were talking about Sunshine, the thing that I was thinking about was maybe you have some sort of, you're on a ship that doesn't have that has enough fuel essentially to make it to your destination, and that's it, to make it to the destination. And then you give the party like, yeah, some sort of secondary goal that pops up, right? Like, so much like you said with like that second round of ammunition, but it's just like, if you go there, you will not have enough fuel to make it to your destination. But, right, like the risk reward could be there.
Yep.
Right. So it's spinning it a little bit in that it's less like, you're going to save the universe and more like you're going to save yourselves if you can make it to that wormhole across the way there. But if you can stop over there, maybe there's more fuel, maybe there's, some sort of secondary thing. This doesn't really seem like an anomaly though, like the more that I'm thinking about it.
I like though where you were kind of going, even if we are drifting a little off course. What if the PCs signed up on this mission, understanding it would cost them something significant, and something unexpected pops up that promises to mitigate that cost? I don't think most role-playing game scenarios would do something like this, but the PCs are on their way somewhere, but they know they won't survive, when they get there. They'll deliver their cargo, but it's too far out or something like that, they won't survive. And then what if you dangle the possibility of like, hey, add a little risk to your journey and you can guaranteed survive it?
Ooh, yeah. What if when they get there, and I'm going to hand wave this a little bit, but like, what if it is like this is your mission. We don't expect to see you ever again. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. They get there, they can do their mission, right? But then there is presented them the option of like creating a wormhole that could essentially like actually get them back.
Ooh, yes.
But it's uncontrollable, right? Or like would also bring back maybe the alien that they discovered on the ship as well. Right. So then it's a choice of like, yeah, well, do we try to get back, or do we continue to do the right thing and just like, not bring back this alien?
I like the idea. And again, we're imagining a kind of contrived RPG scenario here, but I do like the idea that they would have to sit for maybe the rest of their lives with the knowledge that they maybe have a way back, and it's only their conscience that is stopping them. Is it even their conscience? Maybe it's just their, slavery to authority that's stopping them from using it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could give each of the players a different reason why they don't want to hit that button.
Yeah.
Right. So like it's an easy button to hit, but it's like, yeah, so like one person, you get put on their character sheet like you are devoted to the cause. Another one is like, I don't know, scared or nervous or something like that. Like, right, like they have family back home that would be susceptible to whatever is going to come through. Right. You could give them like all sorts of different reasons for it. I think it'd be fun to see how the players would play their characters towards those reasons, especially when given the choice at the end. Right, because if you do it right, like your character sheet could even contain right, cause we're talking about like contrived RPG scenarios. Like maybe you have a bunch of pre-gens and they all have like these things that are about them that they can use for role playing that they don't realize at the end is going to be like very much like, here's your choice now. Like, why are you going to take it or not?
Yep.
What would be the coolest or the most anomalous or the most scary thing that they could bring back with them?
That they could bring back with them. I don't know. Do you have something in mind?
I mean, unicorns, but I've been told that.
Save it for item number 3 here. It's coming up in just a minute, Chris.
What if it is like to steal an idea from Harry Potter? Like, what if the creature like manifests itself as like whatever you like the most in life? So like everybody sees it as a different thing, but it will destroy you in some way.
It's funny. I think we just hit one of those generational tests, because what I think of when I think of that is I think of Ghostbusters in this state.
Yes, yeah.
Choose the form of the destroyer.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Chris is younger than me, dear listeners.
Just a little bit. I mean, I've seen that movie, but like, like my mind went to Harry Potter. Harry Potter is Bogarts, I think is what they are. So,
okay, well, in the interest of time, we've thrown a lot of stuff out there. It's maybe not as specific as some of our ideas have been in the past, but I'd like us to move on to the next anomaly. Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right,
absolutely.
So this is the big one, Chris. This is your chance to shine. We know you like things that aren't scary. this needs to be an anomaly that invites you to investigate it, that isn't scary or ominous. Am I allowed to make that, put those boundaries around it?
Yeah. I mean, I was all prepared to like, let's go darker. Let's go a couple steps. I can do it. It's the sun's shining. It's fine. You know, a space anomaly that could be, a little bit nicer, right, is like, some sort of ship appears in the sky, right? And it has a bunch of, like, refugees on it in some way. But, I mean, like, then you can take it a lot of directions. I mean, my mind immediately went to, like, the ship appears and it's like you, but from 30 years in the future. Or something like that. Like a time loop thing could be really fun. Yeah, so it's like, it's you 30 years in the future, like, showing back up, and, like, maybe they don't recognize you. So, I mean, I think, like, in a lot of time loop stuff, there's usually, like, the people that are coming back from the future, like, oh, finally I found you, that sort of stuff. But maybe they're, like, surprised, or, they don't recognize you, but, like, it's very clear that you're the same.
What if, and I guess we'll just jettison this, like, non-horror angle.
Okay, yeah.
Well, so what if, like, they are back to give you advice, maybe urgent advice, like, don't do this, it's going to cause trouble. Mm-hmm. We're from the future, and we've seen the trouble that happened when you invented the XYZ, or you went to planet X.
Yeah, what if they come back, and rather than even just, like, it's a warning, like, they're coming back, and it's like a war. Like, they are, like, ready to get you.
Like they're attacking
yeah,
you.
like they're coming back to attack you, right? Because, like, whatever happened, and then for the GM, you could create some interesting scenarios if one of them manages, like, if your current party manages to take out, like, your older version of yourself, do you, like, or vice versa, does the older one disappear immediately if they take out the younger one? Right.
Wow. I didn't expect this design challenge to take us into time travel, but
maybe it shouldn't. But I mean, I feel like there's a lot of space stuff. I feel like also deals with time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If every third episode of Star Trek can be about a time loop, then one of our 3 space anomalies can be related to a time loop. That's what I say.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So versions of yourself from the future appear with either some kind of tidings, or maybe they, like, are acting in a seemingly irrational way and just, like, attacking.
I'm trying to think, like, what the angle on space is. I mean, I guess we've really shifted from, like, space anomaly more towards, like, science fiction setups.
Yeah.
Through the conversation. Yeah, but I mean, I think, like, anomalies, like, they can be, I think we said this earlier, like, really beg the question of, okay, so what, right? Like, if there's a, if there's a sun flare, right? Okay, like, I mean, that's right. Like, there's no story there.
Yeah. And if you're in, like, a Star Wars type sci-fi universe, what would actually grab your attention?
Mm-hmm.
Not just one of another million suns flaring or something.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, is there anything in Star Wars that would surprise people?
That's tougher because it's really more of, like, a science fantasy setting, where it's not that weird that there's, like, space wizards and stuff. So, that's, Star Wars is kind of a special case. But, I'm thinking maybe, like, in a Firefly or, what's another setting that's, like, in the future pays a little bit, like The Expanse, pays some lip service to, like, real tech. The Expanse is a pretty good example of a sci-fi setting that's, like, at least in theory, built on sort of hard science fiction. And then in the setting, they're presented with something that defies physics and everything they've come to expect from it. So.
Oh, really? I got to watch that.
Is our final anomaly is a time anomaly, is the appearance of somebody, possibly the PCs from the future. They're acting, aggressively or something like that. And so you need to, A, defend yourselves from whatever the threat is, and B, figure out exactly what is going on. Maybe open up a dialogue or just figure out what's happening here. And if you have any sort of fun GM shenanigans, like for letting people play 2 versions of themselves from different time streams, that I go crazy with it, right?
Oh yeah, that would be great. Like, you get 2 character sheets. It's just like,
what if your younger self gets shot and the old one, like, develops a limp, right away or something. Like do something cool, right?
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Okay.
Do we have maybe we should do like, I mean, I think the quick bonus one is like, probably Aliens, right? Like you have Alien. Like I think you just you take any of the Alien movies, especially Alien Covenant, Andy's favorite one, and just like rip off the I'm sorry, I'll stop.
No,
but
fine.
I think watch Alien, watch Aliens, and then whatever they do in those, just do that at your table.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are these classic anomalies that like humans would just not be able to resist investigating, and they pop up in all these horror movies, like Event Horizon and everything. And I'm like a huge sucker for this. This ship that vanished like 20 years ago just came back. How do you not? I mean, you have to. Even though it clearly just emerged from the hell dimension, right? I mean...
Like, this is the one time you should listen to Military Guy who's just like, well, nuke it from orbit,
Exactly.
Right? Like, but no, you're not going to do that.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're done. We've exhausted a couple of our ideas there. This is good. I mean, we did a space-oriented one-shot on the podcast, a couple months ago. And before that, I don't think I ever would have thought about running anything related to sci-fi at all. But now, I mean, between that and this has my mind spinning.
Well, your challenge, Chris, is now to run all three of these ideas at once in one scenario.
Yeah.
So.
There'll be an hour of me setting things up.
That's right.
Just a monologue.
Before we start, I'd like you to read the 75-page Google document I shared with all of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always a good look. Yeah. Okay. Well, Andy, do you have anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I don't. No, this has been a good chat. Yeah. And good luck on Elden Ring. I'm farther than you, but not far enough that I have any confidence that I know what I'm doing in the game. So,
yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well, so a couple of housekeeping notes, right? So again, we are part of the Roll For It media conglomerate network. We got to come up with the last word for that.
Yeah, we really do.
The Roll For It media network of podcasts. So our sibling podcast, The Splat Book, just released their second episode last week, which was really good. Andy was actually a guest on that podcast.
I was. Chris, it was a nightmare. They hook their guests up to these machines that electrocute them if they say and things like that.
Oh no.
It's just a nightmare.
Yeah, that's bad, but we should probably get that technology.
That sounds absolutely.
Like a good...
They're part of the network. They owe us this tech.
It's a really good podcast. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites, and I'm not just saying that. I mean, I have lots of podcasts I could listen to, but I actually really enjoyed this one. So if you are looking for more Andy in your life, you can go listen to that episode. It's at thesplatbook.com. You can subscribe in all of your podcatchers, I think is the official word for those.
I wish that it was not.
I know. We all wish that it was not. So I think that's good. Yeah. So go check me out at the splatbook.com. That is Kyle Latino and John Corey are the hosts of that podcast. But I've been Chris Salzman.
I've been Andy Rowe.
And remember, if your players are having fun, you're a great GM.